I'm joined now by the president of Save Our Children, Janti Soeripto. Janti, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
So let's start big picture. Talk to people who are watching this right now, Janti, about foreign aid. Why are you so concerned about these cuts to USAID?
So, big picture, the impact of U.S. spending, U.S. assistance across the world is immense. So to withdraw that in such a disorderly and hasty fashion is having a devastating impact. We are literally seeing today health clinics being shuttered, education programs ended, children no longer being protected in refugee camps because a lot of aid organizations have decided to leave because they simply cannot run their presence there and their programs without any cash, because none of us have been paid since January.
To the Trump administration's arguments that they are carrying out these cuts to USAID and other departments and agencies because they're trying to root out waste, fraud, and abuse, you say what?
Look, the 40% of all humanitarian assistance came from the US government globally. 45% actually, I think, last year. 40% of health investment across the world is coming from the US government. We're talking about disease tracking and monitoring, cholera treatment centers, malnutrition treatment for young children. We're talking about vaccinations, polio vaccinations in many countries where polio is still endemic. So, of course, we work in super hard places to work. That's why we are there. We and so many other humanitarian organizations. So is it always perfect? No, things do go wrong. And we actually report on those things because there was a lot of compliance, rightfully so, attached to those awards from the US government. So to say that there's been no impact of that, when I look at a halving of under 5 mortality over the last 20 years, many hundreds of millions of children are now in school, enrolled, girls in particular, much more so than 20 years ago. Maternal mortality has dropped massively 20 years ago, and I could go on. So the impact of, and not all of that is just aid, a lot of that is also better governance, better national governments taking responsibility and having good policy that is also coming out of some of these aid interventions. So there's been a lot of progress. A lot of that progress is now at risk because of this withdrawal of aid funding.
Can you, bottom line, exist? Can your organization exist without USAID funding?
Yes, we can. For Save the Children globally, the US government funding represents around 30% of programmatic spend across countries. Now, of course, in some countries it's higher, in other countries it's lower. So we have to adjust our footprint accordingly, and we are adjusting our cost base also accordingly. We have terminated roles both in the United States as well as overseas. We have announced that we will exit certain countries, and we will have to, within countries, reduce again our cost accordingly, and we will do so. Luckily, we also have a very diversified portfolio. We have phenomenal private companies who support us, private individuals, foundations, and the like, the world over, plus many other government partners that are still with us. So yes, we can exist, and we will. We've been around for 105 years, and we will continue to make sure that the children grow up healthy, safe, and educated. But in the immediate term, we are incredibly concerned, particularly about some of our life-saving interventions.
And just finally, you've said, I was actually very fascinated to read this, you've actually witnessed a retreat in spending on organizations like yours, even before this moment. Talk about that, and what is your message to people who are watching this right now?
We've seen a retreat in foreign assistance, as it's called, the world over. This didn't just start with the new administration at all. We saw it in Europe over the past 2 years, where previously very generous donors have also started to reduce. And clearly last week, the UK also announced a 40% reduction in its aid budgets to prop up its defense spending. Now, that latter reduction will only start to come into play in 2027. So there is more time to adjust, and in some cases to actually make sure that we diversify our funding sources. So all I would say is that, I mean, the impact of these investments, because that is what they are, investments in potential for children the world over, is having an impact. And the impact of those dollars for less than 1% of the federal budget for the US, and in many countries that's the same, resulting in all these millions of children being healthy and fed, is really a no-brainer.
All right. Janti, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. We're back tomorrow with more Meet the Press Now. The news continues with Hallie Jackson right now.